I was standing outside conference room B when I heard my daughter say my name. The door wasn't fully closed. I'd stepped out to grab coffee before the meeting started, and when I came back down the hall, I caught maybe 10 seconds of conversation through the gap. That's all it took. Earl isn't scaling with us. Lorraine was saying, "The board knows it. Hartwell knows it. We just need to move before end of Q1. I stood there in the hallway of the building I'd owned for 25 years, with a paper cup of coffee going cold in my hand. Then I turned around, walked back to my office, closed the door, and sat down. My name is Earl Grady. I'm 57 years old. I started Grady Industrial Supply out of a rented 2,400 square foot metal shop in Dayton, Ohio when I was 32. 3 employees. 1 used lathe and a list of 11 potential customers I'd cold called myself. By the time that hallway moment happened, we had 41 people on payroll, $5.2 million in annual revenue, and manufacturing contracts across 5 Midwest states. I built that. Every contract, every hire, every piece of equipment in that shop, I built it. And my daughter was in a conference room telling my investors it was time for me to go. Lorraine was 34. I'd brought her into the company 5 years earlier, after she finished her MBA. She had the head for it. I always knew that. Sharp, fast, good with numbers. I made her co at 30 because I thought she was ready, and honestly because I was proud. I wanted to hand her something real, something that would last after me. I used to tell people she's going to run this place better than I did, and I meant it. What I didn't know was that she'd decided she didn't want to wait. The trouble had started quietly, the way it always does. 2 months earlier, I'd signed an investment deal with Hartwell Capital Group, $800,000 for a 20% stake in Grady Industrial. Good terms, clean structure. My CFO, Cliff Norris, had reviewed every line of the contract before I touched it. He flagged one clause almost as an afterthought. I retained veto power over any executive leadership change. We both noted it and moved on. At the time, it felt like a formality. What I didn't know, what Cliff would tell me 6 weeks later, was that Lorraine had been in private contact with Hartwell for weeks before I signed, feeding them a picture of the company that centered on one idea, that I was the problem, that I was resistant to growth, stuck in old thinking, not the right person to take Grady Industrial into its next chapter. She'd been building the case for my exit before the ink was even dry on the deal that was supposed to secure the company's future. Cliff came to my office on a Tuesday morning about 6 weeks after the closing. He shut the door behind him, which he almost never did, and set a manila folder on my desk without saying anything first. He looked like a man who'd been carrying something heavy for a few days too long. "Wanda found these," he said. She was reconciling Q3 expenses and came across some email threads she wasn't supposed to see. She brought them to me yesterday. "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner, Earl." I needed to be sure. Inside the folder were printed emails between Lorraine and Hartwell's managing partner. Dates, names, specifics. One email laid it out plainly. "Dad isn't scaling with us. We need to move before end of Q1. I read that email 3 times, then I read the others. There was a whole timeline in there. Lorraine had been working Hartwell for at least 8 weeks before I signed, shaping their perception of me, positioning herself as the solution to a problem she'd invented. The investment wasn't meant to grow the company. It was meant to give her the leverage to push me out. I closed the folder. I thought about the day Lorraine walked into this building for the first time as an employee. She'd worn a blazer she was slightly too nervous to pull off. I'd shown her around the floor myself, introduced her to every machinist by name. She'd taken notes on a yellow legal pad. I remember thinking, she's going to be good at this. I sat with that memory for a while. Then I picked up the phone and called Peggy Stanton. Peggy had been our outside legal counsel for 11 years. I told her what I had without drama. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Pull out your investment agreement. Page 14, Section 7C. Read me the veto clause." I read it to her. "Good," she said. "They cannot remove you or change your title without your written consent. Doesn't matter what Lorraine has been telling them. That clause holds." She paused. "But Earl, don't change anything. Don't tip your hand. Walk in tomorrow like nothing happened. We need time to build this right." That was the instruction. Act normal. Keep going to meetings. Keep signing off on purchase orders. Keep doing the job while everything underneath was being carefully, quietly documented. It was the hardest thing she'd ever asked me to do. For 3 weeks, I did exactly what Peggy said. I walked into that building every morning at 7:15, the same as I had for 25 years. I sat in meetings with Lorraine and nodded when she talked about growth initiatives and leadership bandwidth. I watched her redirect questions away from me in calls with Hartwell, watched her CC their managing partner on emails that used to come straight to my desk. I noticed every single move she made. I wrote nothing down at work. I remembered everything and wrote it down at home, at my kitchen table, after dinner, in a plain spiral notebook. Meanwhile, Peggy hired Faye Colton, a private investigator out of Columbus, to look into the expense irregularities that Wanda Pruitt had flagged. Wanda was our senior accountant, 51 years old, had been with Grady Industrial for 14 years. She was the kind of person who noticed when numbers didn't add up, and she'd been noticing for a while vendor invoices that didn't match any purchase orders on file, consultant fees for a firm nobody in operations had ever heard of. She'd brought it to Cliff quietly, the same way she did everything. No drama, just facts laid flat on the table. Faye's report came back in 3 weeks. Clean, detailed, sourced. Roy Hester, Lorraine's boyfriend of 2 years, had been on our payroll since the month after she was made COO. Listed as a strategic operations consultant. $5,000 a month, 18 months. No signed contract on file, no deliverables. Not a single meeting logged with any department head, not one report, not one email thread with anyone in operations or sales. $90,000. Gone. Wanda cross-referenced the expense account tied to Roy's invoices against the general ledger and found another $22,000 in charges, restaurants, hotels, flights, a weekend rental in Asheville, none of it connected to any client visit or business purpose on record. $12,000 in total, while I was quoting jobs and negotiating supplier contracts and making sure 41 families had a paycheck every week. I remember sitting at my kitchen table reading Faye's report. I read it twice. Then I set it down and looked out the window at the yard for a while. The oak tree my wife and I had planted when we first bought the house was bare. It was November by then. I thought about what Lorraine had been like at 10 years old, sitting at this same table doing homework while I went through invoices. She used to ask me what I was working on. I used to explain it to her like she was a business partner, because even then she had the focus to follow along. I thought about that for maybe 5 minutes. Then I put the report in the folder with the emails and went to bed. 2 days later, Marty called. Marty was my son, 29 years old, worked in the fabrication shop. He'd never had any interest in the management side of things. He liked being on the floor, liked the work itself. I respected that completely. He called me on a Wednesday evening and asked if everything was okay. I asked him why he was asking. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "Lorraine came by the shop last week. She said you've been making some decisions lately that worry her. Said you might be burning out, not thinking as clearly as you used to." Another pause. "She asked me to keep an eye on you." There it was. She was building the case not just with the board, not just with Hartwell, she was building it inside the family. Seeding doubt everywhere she could. If something went wrong with her plan, she'd have people who'd already been told I was slipping. Witnesses, essentially. Prepared in advance. I kept my voice even. I told Marty I appreciated him calling and that I was fine. I told him I was dealing with something at work that I couldn't fully explain yet, but that I would when the time was right. I asked him to trust me for a little while longer. He said, "Okay, Dad, I trust you." That meant more than he knew. Peggy called me the following Monday with one more piece. Faye had obtained through legal channels, public filings, and a contact at the county courthouse, records showing that Lorraine and Roy had jointly opened a business account 3 months earlier under an LLC called HG Consulting. The same LLC appeared on the invoices Wanda had flagged. They'd been running his consulting fees through an entity they co-owned. That wasn't just misuse of company funds. That was a deliberate, structured arrangement. "This changes the picture," Peggy said. "This wasn't sloppy. This was planned." I'd been sitting on the edge of doubt this whole time, the part of me that kept saying, maybe there's an explanation. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe she genuinely believed she was doing what was best for the company. That phone call closed that door. Lorraine didn't think I was burning out. She didn't think I was a liability. She knew exactly what she was doing. She'd set up the LLC months in advance. She'd cultivated Hartwell for weeks before I signed. She'd worked Marty quietly on the side. This wasn't a daughter worried about her father. This was a plan, Peggy said. "We have enough, Earl. Whenever you're ready." I told her to schedule the board meeting. Then I called Cliff and told him to pull every payroll record, every expense report, and every email Wanda had flagged, and to have them organized and printed by the end of the week. He didn't ask questions, he just said, finally. We had exactly 2 weeks to prepare. I used every day of them. The board meeting was scheduled for the second Thursday of November at 10 a.m. Lorraine had called it. The stated agenda, distributed the day before, read, Q4 Planning and Organizational Structure Review. Clean, neutral language. Professional. The kind of wording that doesn't tell you anything unless you already know what it means. Cliff and I knew exactly what it meant. The night before, I sat at my kitchen table with Peggy on speakerphone and went through the presentation one final time. Every document was organized, labeled, and printed in triplicate. The Faye Colton investigative report. Roy Hester's payroll records showing 18 months at $5,000 a month. The expense audit, $22,000 in personal charges run through a company account. The HG Consulting LLC registration dated 3 months before any invoice appeared, showing Lorraine and Roy as co-owners. The email chain between Lorraine and Hartwell's managing partner going back 10 weeks before I signed the investment agreement. And the contract, page 14, section 7C. The veto clause highlighted in yellow. Peggy said, "You don't need to raise your voice once. You just need to put the documents on the table and let them do the talking." I told her I understood. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was nervous, I'd been building toward this for 2 months and I knew what I had. I just kept thinking about Lorraine at 12 years old, coming to the shop on a Saturday morning, putting on a hard hat 3 sizes too big for her head, asking the machinist questions they were surprised she knew to ask. I remembered thinking then, she's going to be something. I let myself think about that for a while. Then I got up, made coffee, and reviewed the documents one more time. I arrived at the building at 8:45, 90 minutes early. I wanted to be the first person in that room. I set up the projector myself, arranged the printed packets at each seat, face down, poured water into the glasses. By 9:30, I was seated at the head of the table with a cup of coffee, reading a supplier quote I'd been meaning to get to all week. Cliff came in at 9:40. He looked at the arranged packets, looked at me, and nodded once. He sat down 2 seats to my left. Wanda Pruitt came in at 9:50. She hadn't been told the details, only that her presence was requested and that her expense documentation would be referenced. She sat quietly near the far end of the table. She looked like a person who'd made peace with doing the right thing and accepted whatever might follow. The Hartwell representatives dialed into the conference line at 9:58. 2 board members took their seats. At 10:02, Lorraine walked in. She saw me at the head of the table and stopped for just a moment. Half a second, maybe less. Something moved across her face, not guilt exactly, more like a calculation running and coming back with an unexpected result. Then she recovered. She smiled. "Dad, Wouldn't miss it," I said. She set up her laptop at the opposite end of the table and pulled up her slides. She opened the meeting, thanked everyone for their time, and began talking about strategic alignment and leadership bandwidth and positioning the company for its next growth phase. The slides were well designed. The language was polished. She'd put real work into this presentation, and for a moment I could almost see the version of events where she believed she was doing the right thing, that she'd convinced herself this was about the company's future and not about her own. I let her get through 4 slides. Then I said, calmly, "Before we go further, I'd like to share something with the group." Lorraine stopped. She looked at me. I gave Cliff the signal, and he connected my laptop to the projector. I didn't stand up. I didn't raise my voice. I spoke the same way I'd talk through a project estimate with a client, methodical, clear, no extra words. First slide. The email chain between Lorraine and Hartwell. Dates, names, direct quotes. I gave the room a moment to read. Second slide, Roy Hester's payroll records. Name, title, listed as Strategic Operations Consultant, $5,000 per month, $18,000, $90,000. I noted that no contract existed, no deliverables had been recorded, and no department head had any record of working with him. Third slide, the expense audit. $22,000 in charges, restaurants, hotels, personal travel, routed through a company account with no business justification on file. Fourth slide, the HG Consulting LLC registration. Lorraine's name, Roy Hester's name. Filing date, 3 months before the first invoice appeared in our system. Fifth slide, page 14, section 7C of the Hartwell Investment Agreement. The veto clause. I read it aloud, slowly once. The room was very quiet. I looked at the speakerphone in the center of the table. I want to be direct with Hartwell, I said. I don't believe your firm was aware of the full picture when these transition conversations were happening. I'm not here to damage that relationship. But I need you to understand who was providing you with information about this company and what that person's actual interests were. Silence on the line. I looked at the two board members. Neither of them was looking at Lorraine. Then I looked at her. She had closed her laptop. At some point in the last few minutes, without me noticing exactly when, she had closed her laptop and placed both hands flat on the table. She was looking at a spot on the surface about 2 feet in front of her. Not at me, not at anyone, I said. Per section 7C, I'm not consenting to any leadership change. Peggy Stanton will follow up with all parties on next steps regarding the financial irregularities. I picked up my coffee cup. Lorraine stood up, picked up her bag, and walked out of the conference room without saying a word. The door closed quietly behind her. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then the Hartwell rep on the line cleared his throat and said, "Earl, we owe you an apology." "Yes," I said, "you do." The board voted that same afternoon, 5-1 to remove Lorraine from her COO position pending a formal internal review. The one dissenting vote was a board member who'd been brought in through Hartwell's recommendation. He abstained on the financial misconduct question and voted no on the removal, which told me everything I needed to know about who he'd been talking to. Peggy noted it and said we'd deal with that separately if needed. Hartwell's written apology arrived 4 days later. Formal letterhead, 2 paragraphs, signed by the managing partner. They acknowledged that they had engaged in preliminary transition discussions without my knowledge and confirmed that those discussions were inconsistent with the terms of our investment agreement. They requested to schedule a call to discuss a path forward. I scheduled the call. We had a professional conversation. I told them I had no interest in unwinding the investment if they could demonstrate going forward that communications would come through me directly. They agreed. We moved on. Roy Hester received a demand letter from Peggy's office. His attorney contacted her 2 weeks later. After some back and forth, they agreed to a repayment plan, $112,000 returned over 36 months, or the matter would proceed to civil litigation. He signed. Lorraine was not criminally charged. Both sets of attorneys concluded that a civil resolution was more appropriate given the circumstances and the family relationship involved. She lost her COO position. She forfeited her equity options, which at the company's current valuation amounted to roughly $180,000. Her professional reputation in the regional manufacturing industry, which is a small world, tighter than most people realize, took the kind of damage that doesn't fully repair itself. I didn't call her. She didn't call me. I left that door at whatever position she'd left it when she walked out of conference room B. The week after the board meeting, I promoted Cliff Norris to CEO. He'd been with Grady Industrial for 20 years. He knew every contract, every vendor relationship, every machine on the floor by name. He'd sat across from me at that conference table for 2 decades and never once given me a reason to doubt him. When everything was falling apart, he was the one who closed the door and put the folder on my desk. He deserved the title. Probably should have had it sooner. I moved to chairman. My name is still on the building. I still come in most mornings, still walk the floor, still know every person on the payroll by name. But I'm not in every meeting anymore. I don't get CC'd on every email. I leave at 5 o'clock most days. First time in 25 years that's been true. Marty came to see me the Saturday after the board meeting. He drove over in the early afternoon and found me in the garage, which is where I go when I need to think without thinking, just hands and tools and something that needs fixing. He stood in the doorway for a second watching me work, then came in and sat on the old wooden stool by the workbench. I gave him the full version. Everything, the emails, phase report, Roy Hester, the LLC, the board meeting, all of it. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "She told me you were losing it, Dad," and I half believed her. He looked at the floor. "I should have called you sooner. I should have come to you the day she said it." I set down the wrench I was holding. "She's your sister," I said. "You wanted to believe there was a version of events where she was right and I was just having a rough patch. That's not stupidity." That's just how family works. He nodded but didn't look convinced. The thing I need you to understand, I said, is that she didn't win. She had 18 months of setup and a pretty good plan and she still didn't win. You know why? He shook his head. Because Cliff came to me with that folder. Because Wanda noticed the numbers. Because Peggy found the clause on page 14. I picked the wrench back up. Nobody does anything alone, Marty. Not building something and not protecting it. You remember that. We stayed in the garage for another 2 hours. He handed me tools when I asked for them. We didn't talk much after that, but it was the good kind of quiet, the kind that means everything that needed saying got said. It's been 8 months since the board meeting. Grady Industrial landed 2 new manufacturing contracts this winter, a components supplier in Indianapolis and a distributor out of Grand Rapids. We'd been courting for 3 years. Cliff closed both of them. He's doing a good job. Better than I expected, and I expected a lot. Wanda Pruitt has a new title on her business card, Director of Financial Operations, and a salary that reflects what she was actually worth all along. She came by my office when I told her and said she appreciated it. I told her she'd earned it the day she walked into Cliff's office with that folder. Some mornings I drive to the building before anyone else is in. I park across the street and watch the lights come on one by one through the windows. Watch the parking lot fill up. Watch my people show up to do the work. 41 families. That's what 25 years built. That's what I protected when I sat in that hallway with a cold cup of coffee and decided I wasn't going anywhere. I don't know what happens with Lorraine. Maybe someday she calls, maybe she doesn't. That part isn't up to me, and I've made my peace with that. What I know is this. I spent a long time thinking the company was what I was protecting. The revenue, the contracts, the building with my name on it. But standing in that boardroom with those documents in front of me, I understood it wasn't about any of that. It was about not letting someone rewrite who I was, not even my own daughter. I built something real. I told the truth about it when it mattered. And when I walked out of that building on a Thursday afternoon in November and drove home in the early dark, I felt like a man who'd done exactly what he was supposed to do. That's enough. That's always been enough. Standing your ground isn't stubbornness. It's the only way to show the people watching that some things aren't for sale, not even to family. The real thing you build over 25 years isn't a company. It's a record of who you are, and nobody gets to erase that without your permission.